All right. Hey guys, thanks for coming today. I can't see you. This is like such a cool room. I am having a bit of my own transformational experience day, so hopefully I can gather all of my thoughts and share a little bit with you about the work we're doing. For those of you that I don't know, I'm Cathy Lewis-Long. I'm the co-founder and executive director of the Sprout Fund, and I'm really excited to be a part of this kind of first ever summit and to partner not only as a supporter of the event, but as someone who works really closely with ETC and all of the folks over, or many of the folks over at Carnegie Mellon. So thanks for joining my session. And how many of you are from out of town? Okay, so we kind of have a mixed room. And of those of you from Pittsburgh, let's see, how many of you have heard of the Remake Learning Network? Okay, so we've got some partners in the room. And so therefore, by proxy, I'll figure you've also heard of the Sprout Fund. But for those of you who are not as familiar with our work, the Sprout Fund is a nonprofit organization in Pittsburgh, and we're really focused on supporting the creativity and innovation in the region. So we, since 2001, have invested in about $4 million worth of early stage investments in about 600 community-based projects. In 2009, much of that focus really turned to catalyzing new and innovative approaches to teaching and learning, really with a focus on new media and technology. So that's kind of what brings us closer to this work and to all of your areas of interest. So, you know, as we all know through our work and through our life, that transformational experiences have the incredible power to create positive impact in many different areas. At Sprout, we're really most excited about how technology and new media can have those transformational effects on learning experiences, and particularly learning experiences for children. We know that in the global and network world that we live in, that learning has to change, that practices have to change, and we need new kinds of methods and tools to create and to help support new kinds of problem solvers. So we need to be able to prepare our students and all of young people for the problems of tomorrow, and to really help to design those solutions that allows them to work collaboratively. So that's no small task, transforming education, and it's from our perspective, our network's perspective, that it really isn't the role of any one institution, that there isn't an institution that has the resources, and I would argue doesn't have should not have the responsibility of kind of carrying that mantle. That learning doesn't stop at 3 o'clock when the school bell rings, and that learning is really anywhere, anytime. That the opportunity is to create pathways for learning and to really harness all of the assets of a community to contribute to that learning journey. So we believe to create transformational experiences, it needs to be a collaborative effort. We need to bring new people into that learning experience and into that learning equation that are not traditionally focused on education. And I assume many of you come from many sectors and cross-discipline, and we think that that's really where that fertile and kind of opportunity exists, by bumping up different sectors to really think about how to create the learners of tomorrow and to provide them with the skills, the knowledge, the dispositions that they need to be successful in school, workforce, and life. So again, we think that oh my gosh, I'm not advancing here. What do we do? Huh. Well, the slides aren't that pretty unless you want to help me.
Try the arrow key, the right arrow.
Okay, thanks, Jesse.
Yeah,
there we go. Okay, well, so we talked about Sprout. That's our network. Those are, you know, people doing all kinds of transformational learning experiences. The network, this approach that we're taking from a cross-discipline perspective, is really having brought together more than 200 organizations that are working together in a collaborative way, both from network member perspective and an organization perspective to provide children with new and informative and innovative ways of learning. So this network has built on a long history in our community of innovation and really finding those centers of excellence in our community to create these imaginative opportunities. So we know that that spirit of innovation and imagination is certainly alive and well at Carnegie Mellon University, but it's also within our schools, our libraries, our museums, our nonprofits, and in the startup community. That is really what the network is here to service. The approach that we've taken when we talk about a cross-sector discipline is really along these 5 petals, that when you have the formal and informal learning environments, these would be our schools, our museums, our libraries, all of the places that are sites for youth to learn. When it comes together with innovation and research, this is the incredible work that's coming out of some of the labs at places like CMU, as well as the other universities within the region, combined with commercial and entrepreneurial engagement, and bringing into that fold learning scholarship and advocacy, recognizing, what is the learning science behind these new approaches, and kind of pulling everything together with a sense of strategic stewardship. So, where can you call? Who's going to answer the phone? If you're an entrepreneur with a new app and you want to play test, how do you get that into places where youth spend their time, whether it's in a classroom or in a museum? So we've really taken this approach of pulling together these areas of excellence, all of the institutions that are contributing to learning environments, and really making up what we consider to be the Remake Learning Network. It started in a very informal, kind of ad hoc way, over breakfast and pancakes, and saying, we're a strong community in education, we're a strong community in technology, and what's the potential when you bump some of those things up? So it is really, I would say, evolved to a place of being highly coordinated and loosely affiliated. It is an open network. We have a theory that, if you give out an extra piece of pizza because someone's come to a meetup, they're probably not going to come back. They will probably just go on to find other affinity groups. And so it is really to bring as many people into the fold and to provide a set of services that really helps to move the network and the vision forward. So Carnegie Mellon has been a key pillar in this work, and certainly ETC's approach to sort of transformational learning experiences has resulted in some of the most outstanding projects for the network. I encourage you this afternoon to go to the sessions that Jane Warner from the Pittsburgh Children's Museum will be leading. One of the key projects of the Remake Learning Network has been the Make Shop, and I imagine she'll talk a little bit about the makerspace and how they have set a standard really globally for thinking about makerspaces within Children's Museum. You'll also have the opportunity to hear from the folks over at Elizabeth Forward School District. That has been an example of a very early connection that would never have been made. These are, leaders that were operating in very different spaces. The former director of ETC, Don Marinelli, tagged up with Bart Rocco, the superintendent there, and really shared with him what was happening over at ETC. And Dr. Rocco was like, we want this in our school. We want to capture that spark, that imagination in a young person's life. And from that, school district has completely transformed itself and has become now a member of the League of Innovative Schools, which is a nationally recognized distinction for recognizing how to create learning opportunities and learning experiences for young people that are powerful, that are relevant, that capture their imagination, and doing that with cross-curricular activities by having a Fab Lab and a makerspace. And they now have so many things that are the attributes of what we would consider to be transformational learning experiences that I really encourage you, if you can, to spend some time learning about the Elizabeth Forward school district. So in terms of how does this all come together, it's really with a lot of intentionality and stewardship and coordination. So the role of my organization on behalf of the network, which is, it was an interesting decision. We're not educators. I sometimes feel a bit of an imposter in this space, but it's proven to be a very powerful approach to be an intermediary, really there just to lift up the practices of the institutions, organizations, members, projects, and people that are behind the Remake Learning network. So, providing that leadership and coordination to really guide the network, serving as a convener, whether it's with a full network assembly or rally where we often bring everyone together and kind of showcase and lift up the projects of the network, or affinity groups where the early childhood or the robotics or the maker community have opportunities to meet colleagues in the space working on behalf of learning experiences and positive learning outcomes for young people. So really creating, kind of building that field or community of practice among practitioners working within the space. And then really serving as a communicator. I encourage all of you to visit the remakelearning.org platform. It is a space where we tell the stories of the people, the projects, the ideas. It's a place to find a calendar of what's coming up, of the resources that are ahead. And one of the things that we've done here on the Remake Learning platform is to take a national or a global perspective on how learning is changing today. So really touching on topics that are probably on all of your minds, and then using Pittsburgh as the use case or the petri dish, really lifting up those practices of people working within our community that are on the vanguard of this work. And then certainly serving as a catalyst to support these projects all through small grants, through scholarship, through stipends, sponsorship, sending people to conferences, sending delegations to conferences, really creating that kind of gateway into the world of what's happening in the space and with the network. So I wanted to talk just for a moment about two of the catalytic projects of the Remake Learning Network in terms of how we have supported them. Really, as I said, the cornerstone ones coming from ETC have been the Make Shop and the Elizabeth's Forward Partnership. But here's a small project that came out of CMU Center for Arts and Society, and it's called Social Change 101, and it's combining a online course workshop with real online learning with real life workshops to deal with issues of social change and to give the young people the tools and the agency that they need to understand really how to communicate and share their values around social issues, around environmental issues. And it's just an example of a kind of non-traditional project, a small catalytic grant that is providing young people with the tools that they need to become the agents of change, the communicators of their values and of their visions. Another project is called the Children's Innovation Project. This is a project of a classroom teacher in a Pittsburgh public school with an artist who is serving as a fellow in the Create Lab, one of the labs over at Carnegie Mellon. And it's really about teaching very young children, in this instance, the use of circuit blocks to guide the exploration of technology as a raw material, to really kind of unpack what's behind the technology, to learn how to do instead of to just consume, how to make, how do things work, and really to understand how the world is transforming through technology. So this is a curriculum that started in kindergarten and has been extended and replicated in other schools and districts. It's a pretty exciting project, but it is also unusual that you see a classroom teacher working with a research fellow who's also an artist, supported through an outside grant, leveraged by the network, that is then able to go to scale, to play test, to replicate, and to really serve as the foundational aspects for helping very young children learn these very important tools. So understanding that the world is not just something that exists, but is something that they can explore and that they should understand. So as I mentioned, we started in a very kind of informal and ad hoc way. We've kind of grown not only in our set of services and in our number of members that are tied into the network, but into really becoming a part of a broader community. We're part of the Hive Learning Network, which is a global set of communities working at a network-based approach to take this kind of learning opportunities for educators to 500 cities across the globe. We're participating. Actually, a lot of people come to Pittsburgh and are like, what's going on here? What's in the water? How did this all happen? And what is the change? So at the invitation of the Office of Science and Technology Policy at the White House, we have been invited to, or asked to, develop a playbook of how did this Remake Learning Network emerge, and how to really share out in an open practices perspective, not only some of the case studies of our greatest accomplishments, but how did that network form, and how might others, whether you're a classroom teacher or a superintendent or a regional funder or a parent, what are those on-ramps for creating that kind of change in your community? So really taking from an open source perspective, how to share the project code behind this work, and that's something that we'll be launching this June. So I encourage all of you to think about it. But as we've grown in our size and in our complexity, it has allowed us to then think more rigorously about how to go deeper with some of this work, and to how to really kind of put the network in action as it matures and enhances kind of our ability as a community to respond to some very timely issues. So two that I wanted to talk about. One is badges for learning, and recognizing, again, since so much learning is happening outside of a school building, and that frankly the way that learning is credentialed today or recognized today is very opaque. My B in a class may be very, very different than your B in a class, and so what stands behind that work is really the value proposition that we see in badging, that we can create opportunities to recognize the learning that occurs, particularly in the out-of-school space, and then to create some pathways within a community. So if it's a robotics pathway, maybe a young person takes a robotics class and has that aha moment. Well, how can we create intentions and handoffs to what's happening in an out-of-school space or in a museum or online learning, and using badges because they're stackable and the technology provides for that, to really begin to think about how to level up learning and to really extend that learning. But badges actually are only valuable if the competencies beneath them that they're representing are rigorous. So we've just completed a 8-month kind of grassroots community-based process to really ask the community and subject matter experts to think critically around 7 different focus areas about the skills, the knowledge, and the dispositions of different focus areas that they value as important. So if it's, in making, what are the skills, knowledge, and dispositions of learning experiences that we really want to be the foundational aspect by which to design badges on top of. So we've just published all of that work. I encourage you to check it out. It's something we're incredibly proud of the work of this community, to think in such a I think, audacious way about learning and what are the competencies that sit beneath that. Again, it's all in open source, so downloadable to what was the process, what was the methodology, sharing all of the badges, the competencies that were identified. So it was about 12 different competencies in each of these focus areas. And one of the insights also was cross-cutting competencies across different disciplines. What are the things that are cross-cutting within or across the region. So check out the work that we're doing on badges. It is all kind of fodder for a big campaign that we'll do this summer called City of Learning. It's a project of the MacArthur Foundation, and they have identified 4 cities to be kind of vanguard cities for the summer of 2015. It's Pittsburgh, Chicago, Dallas, and Washington, D.C. And it's really this notion of turning our entire city into a campus for learning. So this summer, we'll be partnering with more than 40 organizations who will be issuing badges for their summer learning. It's also a very important time of the year. There's so much research on summer learning loss, so it's how to actually capture and recognize and lift up the learning that's happening this summer. We have three kind of signature partners that we're very excited about. One is the Pittsburgh Public Schools Summer Dreamers Academy. What's interesting there is that program in the morning is formal learning, so it's math and literacy remedial work, and then the afternoon is all of the community programming like kayaking and woodworking and all of that. We'll be badging both tracks of that, so it'll actually be the first time, to my knowledge, in the country that the badges will be used in formal learning setting. We'll also be partnering with the Pittsburgh Learn and Earn program, which is the Mayor's Youth Employment Program, as well as the Carnegie Library Summer Literacy Program. The last kind of vertical dive that we think that the network is really ready for is learning is great, but there's also an enterprise aspect to it, and what is the EdTech opportunity really associated with this cross-sector discipline? So how can we be certain that we're keeping learning experiences and learning outcomes for young people really at the fore of this work? So we'll be having a deep focus kind of on EdTech, both in terms of building that community, bringing a lot of times the EdTech community doesn't see themselves in the learning or education field, and so how to create those convenings, those opportunities to communicate about it, and certainly those opportunities to support the project. So lots going on. It's been a great kind of 9 years or 10 years at this work, and I think we're really, as a community, poised to create tremendous opportunities both for the educators and for the youth that they're serving. So I think I got the 5-minute warning here, but if anyone has any questions, I'm happy to take them. Oh, come on. You got to have something. Yes?
Are there programs within this network that work specifically with kids on the autism spectrum or kids with other kinds of learning differences?
Yeah, and so, personalized learning is certainly a part of it, and while it's not an overt focus of the program, there has been some of the projects within the network, and certainly some of the organizations and institutions working are thinking deeply about that. That's it? Everyone's hungry? Usually I'm the one standing between like the bar, but this is just like a turkey sandwich, so yes.
Do you actually have a vehicle to do the badging? So do you have
The technical platform?
Yeah.
Well, so you are touching on the Achilles heel of the project, the technical innovation behind it. It has really been the hardest part, the value proposition. People are excited about badging. The short answer is yes. We're working as part of Cities of Learning. It's actually a platform that DePaul University has developed, so there is some localized customization for it. But it is, OBI compliant, which is the Open Badges infrastructure from Mozilla, and really, and also an issuing platform.
Okay. I was going to say, because we have one at Penn State. So
Oh, and I think we're talking to you at Penn State.
Good.
Yeah.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
If there's participation in the project that you're doing with the Summer Dreamers,
Mm-hmm.
is it through a touch person through the school district or through your organization to participate in it, find out how the research is going, etc.?
So if I understand the question, it says our contact is with Pittsburgh Public Schools, and Pittsburgh Public Schools will be issuing the badges. So we're not issuing at the Sprout Fund or the network any of the badges. We're just enabling the opportunity for partners to do it. And all of this work this summer will be associated with some research. So there is a kind of formative research that's going on along the way.
And who's doing, or who's responsible for the research, or who's going to be?
There's actually a small team that's a cross-discipline team between University of Pittsburgh and Carnegie Mellon. All right. And Jesse is, hello. Hi, thanks for joining my session. He is one, as we all know, one of the stars really thinking about this work deeply and participating in our network. Aww.
All right, well, thanks very much, Cathy.
Sure.